Malaysian generally always confined to Malaysia 的 market 啦，so see if 我们这个平台可以 encourage 多一点人啊，知道关于新加坡啊，也了解，诶，没有那么可怕啊，那个 fees 啊，其实没有想象那么可怕，然后它的 market 其实很大。然后 Singapore is always the exporter and the IP hub. No, it's a financial hub of Asia, taking over Hong Kong.
Yep.
So share with public 咯，看一下他们有什么看法。So I will share to my page and other pages.
反正你没有那个 headset 呢 ？headset 可以讲比较清楚，还没那个声音。你 lock 咗你個 mute 啊？你 mute 咗你嘅 speaker 啊？
OK， 我现在看到越来越多人进来了。So OK， we are very happy to invite Singapore Chartered Secretaries Corporate House Group co-founders Simon Lee and Alan Teng to share with us their more than a decade experience in setting up offices in running Singapore company. So guys, if you have any questions, you may always drop your questions so that we can ask these two professionals from Singapore. They are Singaporean, they are not Malaysian. So grab this opportunity. They only have around 30 minutes with us. Their time is very valuable. They have more than 100,000 followers in Singapore on our Facebook page. So this is a very amazing time where we can ask them all questions about setting up company in Singapore. So Alan, would you mind telling us about your company, a brief introduction about you and Simon?
Hi everyone, I'm Alan here. I'm a partner of Corporate House and Partners in Singapore. Our company mainly is helping people to set up company, doing accounts, accounting, tax, payroll, and legalization of documentation. Maybe Simon, you can elaborate some?
Yeah, we have been established in this industry for more than 15 years. both of us are from Malaysian actually. We are Malaysian actually. We have been here more than 15 years. Before that, we are employed by a bigger firm here in Singapore. We do listed companies, private companies, MNCs. So we have great exposures on corporate exercise in Singapore. So if anyone want to have any inquiries, please feel free to ask us.
Yeah, actually, our journey is almost similar to all people. Like we were employed previously, and then we are thinking about starting up our own business. You know, like incorporation, do our own business. And then before that, there will be some challenges, struggles. We do have this kind of struggling journey. So I believe some of the customer or people do have the similar thing, like especially during crisis time, they are thinking, don't know what to do. They are confused, and I think mainly is they are unaware of the information and details of how to start a business. So if let's say you have any questions, queries, you may feel free to ask, and we're happy to share with all of you.
Okay, while we are waiting for the audience to slowly settling down, come in, now I think we have more than 20 over viewers at the moment from our TIB page. I'm not able to see from your side. Corporate House, how about in Singapore? How's
We have
reception now?
our admin here. We have our admin here to take care of.
You have your admin here, okay? That's great. Yeah. So actually, a lot of people would want to know, if as a Malaysian, we want to set up a company in Singapore, can we own 100% of the share in Singapore? Or we need a Singapore director or shareholder to, we need to work with a Singapore citizen or PR to set up a company in Singapore? This is my first question.
Maybe I try to explain further. Okay, for incorporation of a Singapore company, right, it's pretty straightforward here in Singapore. I think Malaysian, for the past 2 years, they have been following Singapore footsteps. The requirement, you must have a minimum 1 local directors who is a Singaporean or Singapore PR or an employment pass holder in Singapore.
Okay.
Shareholder-wise can be 100% foreigners with minimum $1 paid-up capital, minimum 1 shares. Yeah. So I think it's pretty similar to Malaysia requirements nowadays.
Is there any way to circumvent and make sure that there's only 1 director and 1 shareholder, but a Malaysian owning a Singapore company?
Yes, of course. Okay, if let's say our clients don't have any local directors or Singapore PR to act as their directors, right? We can provide a nominee for them. And then during the course, right, after they incorporated the company, they can actually apply for an employment plus in Singapore. Once they got the employment plus, they can apply to be the resident directors. Then the whole company will be fully owned and controlled by foreigners.
I see. Alan, may I ask you, after setting up a Singapore company, normally the company known as, in Malaysia, a private limited company, we call Sendirian Berhad. In Singapore, is it called private limited? And
yes.
What about setting up bank account? Do we need to be in Singapore to set up, or we can appoint your company to help us in setting up company and account as well, and finding officers? Or your service is only limited to incorporating a company only?
Okay. In Singapore, usually they will call a private company limited by share for a private company, and usually with the words called PTE Ltd.
Which is similar to Sendirian Berhad in Malaysia, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost similar to that. Beside that, then will be like limited Ltd for public unlisted or public listed, or then public limited by guarantee.
Which is Berhad in Malaysia.
Yeah, it's a Berhad.
Berhad, okay.
Okay, then for opening our bank account wise, usually we'll help people to do this service as well, to help them to collate and documentation once incorporated, and then liaise with the bank officer for the opening of bank account. And usually we have a special added values advice to the clients on how to set up a company so that the bank account can be opened so-called easier. Yeah.
Okay.
And this
What
services
about
for
the tax structure in Singapore for September? Interesting question. What about the tax percentage that if a Malaysian we set up a company in Singapore, is it same tax levy applied to all across, whether you are Malaysian owned company or own Singapore company? Is it how's the tax rate? Like in Malaysia, the first 500,000 is 18% chargeable, tax chargeable, and subsequent 500, subsequent profit additional to the initial 500,000 is about 24%. What about Singapore?
For Singapore, the tax wise for corporate, the standard rate is 17%, 17.
17%. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and then but it still depends on whether the structure, how is the structure of the company. Depends on whether the shareholder is a corporate or the individual. Then the rate will be different based on the structure of the company.
If the shareholders are Malaysian, just Malaysian without any Singaporean, what is the tax rate like?
No, it not differentiate by way of whether it's a nationality, it's by way of whether it's a corporate or individual. If let's say the shareholder,
okay.
Let's say the shareholder that there's a group of corporate shareholder in the company, then the tax rate treatment will be different as compared to individual shareholder.
All right.
No matter what's the nationality.
What people always say, Singapore now has actually overtaken Hong Kong as the financial hub. So what do you think about this statement? It's like Hong Kong last year, they had a lot of protests, a lot of riots going on and affecting their economy, investors' confidence. And this year, it seems like it is followed by COVID-19. And these are the consequences. And a lot of movies or even news reporting are also already reminding that Singapore is the next financial hub of Asia. What do you think as a Singapore professional in this line? What you both think?
I think it's good for Singapore. It has been a very challenging period for Hong Kong since last year of all those riots happening. And then from end of last year, we actually see the trends of a lot of Hong Kong companies, be it active company, which is in operation, or is a fund companies, meaning they are invest in funds and stock markets. They're actually shifting their assets and funds to Singapore because of Singapore is more politically stable in per se. So we are seeing the trend. So I think after this COVID pandemic, right, I would think that it will be more and more Hong Kong companies coming over to Singapore.
From our own experience, TIB experience, we also have an office in Singapore. So according to World Intellectual Property Organization statistics, where they are the administrator and custodian of world IP law, and of course, Singapore representative from IPOS is being nominated as the new Director General of WIPO, which he is going to lead the international organization, which is very good. And WIPO ASEAN branch office or regional office is actually in Singapore. They are situated in National University of Singapore. So from my experience is that Singaporean, they are exporters. So 1 year, maybe Malaysia, we have about 10,000 applications, trademark applications filed overseas. But in Singapore, there are about 50,000 trademark applications filed overseas. And all our clients from Singapore, whenever they call us and ask us about trademark registration, they are not asking about Singapore only. They always ask, hey, T, what about US? How does it work? How about Europe? Or how about South Africa? And so on. So I can see the awareness on IP as well as the nature of business is more international in Singapore. They will go and file their trademark. Does not only confine to Singapore, but they are exporting their services and products. So how do you see this thing? A lot of is there a lot of Asia company is setting up? I believe so. Just now you have mentioned there are more and more after Hong Kong instability. There are more and more companies come to Singapore set up, and I also see a lot of influx of foreigners being granted citizenship. Like I can see Hai Di Lao founder, a listed co-boss, and he's also now the richest man in Singapore. If this is still true, I'm not sure because of COVID-19. So can you tell us more about all these news or issues, latest issues in Singapore?
Yeah, I think for the past few years, right, there are a lot of international firms coming to Singapore. First of all, because of the tax is quite attractive. I think we are the second best behind Hong Kong. Hong Kong tax rate is 16.5. Singapore is 17%. Okay, and then beside that, Singapore company, right? Government actually give a lot of incentives. They got tax rebate incentive. If you invest in some technologies that can provide or improve productivity, right? Actually, the government give a grant to the company. Like for example, if you purchase a POS systems or some kind of software to boost your productivity, actually the government is actually paying almost 30 over K a year. I mean the whole project in the sum. 19% of the project cost capped at 45,000. So I think it's pretty good for Singapore companies. And then like what you said, a lot of companies are moving to Singapore and registered their trademark here, and that is protected locally or internationally. So that's why you can see the trend actually. Singapore is the next financial hub. And then if you see this recent COVID situation, right? Government is giving a lot of grants to Singapore company. They call it wage support. I think
same in Malaysia. We do have wage support as well.
Yep. And then for sole proprietor or entrepreneur, right? Then they will give back a rebate as well. So and then the latest one, the government are actually supporting the bank to grant an SME loan or bridging loan to the local companies by giving, I think, maximum 5 million loan with less than 3% interest.
I see.
It's an unsecured loan. It's an unsecured loan. Mm-hmm.
That means without collateral, right? No collateral is required.
Correct. So I think.
What about is there any grant available like during this COVID-19? Like Malaysian government, they do give 3,000 ringgit or SGD 1,000 to companies who has revenue less than 300,000 or 100,000 SGD in Malaysia. This is a one-off payment to support and to help Malaysian micro business who has less than 300,000 turnover. In Singapore, do you have any grant instead of loan, like like government pay you one off? That's it.
Yeah, Yeah, different type of grant. I mean, it's still consider like supporting those SME level, I can say, especially those they would still want to support those people, employers firm that who employ the local employee first.
Yep.
But it's quite a fair treatment to everyone, even in Malaysia or Singapore. I believe so.
Okay, I do receive one very interesting question from the public.
Yes.
What about the SST rate in or GST in Singapore? So Malaysia, prior to the change of government, our GST rate was 6%, and now we call SST.
Yep.
So I believe in Singapore you are still using GST. What is the GST rate now in Singapore?
For now, it's
And
7%.
how much does 7%?
Yeah, for now it's 7%. Actually, the parliament
percent higher than Malaysia.
Correct. Yeah, and then the parliament actually the budget. Yeah, the budget last 2 years has actually approved the GST will be increased to 9%, but progressively. It's not. Yeah, 9%.
Okay.
But maybe 1 or 2 years time.
Yes. Yes.
Last time GST, in my experience, in our Malaysian experience, only company with revenue more than 500,000 ringgit is chargeable. We can charge GST. Below 500,000 turnover per year, we are not required to charge GST. Does this rule, it applies in Singapore?
Yeah,
that
Singapore...
means if your company does not meet a certain threshold, you are not required to collect GST from your clients or customers. What about Singapore? What's the threshold?
Singapore threshold is 1 million Singapore dollar. 1 million Singapore dollar. This is compulsory.
1 million Singapore dollar.
Yes, yes. So this is compulsory application because some firm
even higher.
Some firm prefer to be volunteered GST, to be a GST registered company. Then this is subject to the income tax department because some company think that most of their expenses, right, incur GST. So if they are not a GST registered company, they can't claim back the GST. So they purposely go and register government as a GST registered company to claim back the GST paid.
Okay, I do receive another question. They are asking how much does it cost to register or incorporate a Singapore company? So would you want to tell like roughly how much cost or budget in terms of that entrepreneur need to prepare to set up a company in Singapore?
Maybe Alan can.
Yeah. For Malaysian people to set up a company in Singapore, it still depends on what is the objective first, and depends on how complicated the structure they need to be set up. But the range wise for incorporation for us is between like about 800 Singapore dollar to 1,500 Singapore dollar. It depends within the range, subject to how complicated and how what's the objective and the outcome do they want for this company. Yeah, so it's still subjective for the price range, but it's within that range, Singapore dollar 800 to Singapore dollar 1,500.
Yep.
Yeah.
So would you want to share any particular information that you think is useful for Malaysian businesses or entrepreneurs? Why they should incorporate a company in Singapore other than the market concern or tax concern? Is there any other benefits or factors that can encourage more Malaysians to set up company in Singapore?
Okay,
like,
actually, we do have a lot of Malaysian coming to Singapore. So actually, they have already. Yes, they actually has it's an established business in Malaysia. But compared to the tax or various factors, right? I think the most important now is the banking infrastructure in Singapore. Their comment is definitely is better than Malaysian bank in terms of their interest, facilities,
What
everything.
is
Because
the interest rate like for fixed deposit in Singapore?
okay, deposit
or a normal loan?
Saving is nowhere compared to Malaysia. I think it's less
Okay,
than
savings
2%.
is off.
Off.
Malaysia is better for
Yes,
yes.
Malaysia
Okay.
is better.
But borrowing loan, it means that if we take up loan, it will be cheaper lah.
Yes, yes. And then you have all kind of international bank in Singapore. And then because Singapore being the international trading hub as well, so the bank are very supportive to all trading companies.
Yep.
Okay, so this is most reason why a lot of Malaysian entrepreneurs that shift to Singapore. Okay, because I think the last 3 or 4 years, right, because of this one MDB issue, right, the bank actually changed their policy. All those trading companies that deal with USD, and then the bank said we cannot keep USD. You must convert to RM, and then if you want to trade again, you convert back to USD.
Yes.
So actually, they lost a lot of forex there. So it's different from Singapore's perspective. In the banks, you can actually keep USD here. So
yeah, that's very good.
Yeah. That's why Malaysian company they like Singapore company. And then the secondary objective, right? Why Malaysians they like Singapore companies? With companies here in Singapore, you can entitle to apply for employment pass. Of course, employment pass you must have a good education background, a working experience, and a good salary. Okay, once you achieve this criteria, right, you can apply for employment pass in Singapore and stay here in Singapore. You can bring your families here to Singapore to stay together. And then after that, you can plan for permanent residence application, and then you can choose to be a Singaporean or not. So this is another good point of having a Singapore company. So Singapore.
Okay, we have one last question to both of you. There are more and more startups are actually trying to raise fund from the public or raise fund from private equity, PE, VC, that kind of fundraising road. So how is Singapore a better place for fundraising and IPO purpose compared to Malaysia? I know, Simon, you are experienced in handling IPO companies, not only small companies, small and medium companies, you are also experienced in handling IPO matters. So this last question is to let the public know how can you help them, and what is your, maybe you want to cite one example experience who you have helped and how you do it. Yeah, this is our last questions to both of you. Yeah.
You want to share something? So for Singapore, right, like what you say, actually in Singapore, there are a lot of private fund, PE funds, VC in Singapore, and only their objective is to invest in local companies. So of course, if the business you're bringing to Singapore, right, you can easily get funding, private funding, besides banking. Okay, so if let's say down the road you want to go for this thing, right, for Singapore, it's like same in Malaysia. We have 2 board, main board and catalyst. So for catalyst, it's mainly for SME. The requirement is pretty relaxed compared to main board. Even you are not really making money, you also can list your company for catalyst. Okay, and then yeah. So I think that's the thing that I want to share.
Yeah, beside the public listed company, fundraising one, Simon said, and even the private company, they do also many private company that do fundraising, equity fundraising in Singapore. I think we do have many, I think quite many from Indonesia. They would like to raise fund in Singapore, but of course they still need to comply to certain requirement and rules that set up by the central bank in Singapore, they call MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore. So they still need to comply with certain requirement to have raise a fund from the public and private as well. Yeah, so this is quite interesting in Singapore.
For listed company in Singapore, sadly speaking, the valuation is still cannot catch up with Hong Kong the companies in terms of share valuation. But
Simon, I think you can speak nearer to your mic. So
yeah. Okay. For the share valuation, right, for listed company in Singapore, right, actually, sadly speaking, is still below valuation.
Below valuation.
Yeah, compared to Hong Kong stock market. Yeah, this is the drawback of Singapore stock market.
So that means there's a lot of possibilities for going up in Singapore.
Yes.
Okay, this is very good. Would you both like to add any more thing? Otherwise, we will share a link in our live session chat room, so that if anyone in the public, you have any questions, you can fill up the Google form, the link, click on the link and you can fill up, and you can reach these two experts from Singapore. They are very trustable and credible Singapore company secretaries, as well as one-stop solution for all corporate matters you require in Singapore. Their clients are not only limited to Singaporean, they always deal internationally. They also have a presence in France, in other ASEAN countries, in Hong Kong and in Taiwan. If you want to set up company, not only in Singapore, but also worldwide, you can always look for these two professionals, or we do tag their Facebook page. You can always visit their Facebook page to get more information. So I would like to thank the audience for your time, for spending the last 30 minutes with us. And thank you, Alan, and thank you, Simon, for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for valuable information and knowledge on setting up company in Singapore. I trust this is very useful for myself and all the Singapore businesses, Malaysian businesses who is thinking of extending their marketplace to Singapore. So thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.
We are looking forward to help everyone.
Stay safe and stay home.
Yeah.
Same to you guys.
If you all have any comments, just drop any comments in TIP page as well. Then I will liaise with Mr. T and respond you all accordingly.
Yeah,
okay?
Our team will gather and we will share it to Corporate House Group. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Thank you, Simon.
Thanks. No problem. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.